You saw other fragments which were on the surface, both in Davidson Center as well as at the Western Wall Plaza. So now, finally, before we head over to the Shrine of the Book and to see some Dead Sea Scrolls and other artifacts, I want to talk about the $1 million question, which is, where was Jesus crucified? Where was he buried? And where did he rise from the dead 3 days later? Okay, without complicating matters too much, I will focus on the two main schools of thought, okay? Let me just start by saying that nobody knows for sure where both places were at, okay? These are just assumptions, suggestions, they're different traditions, but I'm going to talk about the two major schools of thought. The first school of thought is what I call the traditional school of thought, okay? It was started by the Byzantines, okay? And their identification of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre as the actual site. Remember the Byzantines, 4th century AD, and so 1600 years ago, that's the oldest tradition. And what they essentially said was that Jesus was crucified and buried, and of course rose from the dead 3 days later, right there. You see that laser dot, the green dot? You see that little rock here? Okay, there it is. This is the, okay, do you see this? Can everybody see this? Follow the dot. Okay, you see that rock? Okay, so this is where they believed Golgotha was at. Today there's a big church over that bedrock, and it's called the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Today it's inside the old city, but back in the day it was outside the old city. And again, if you're wondering how come, what about this wall here? Well, this wall did not exist at the time of Jesus, right? Where was the northern wall of the city at the time of Jesus? That one. Okay, this was the northern wall of the city in those days. So all this area here was outside the city wall. Of course, none of these buildings were here at the time. And this is where hundreds of millions of Christians from around the world, mostly traditional ones like, Catholics and Greek Orthodox and others, believe Jesus was both crucified, buried, and where he rose from the dead. By the way, they also believe that the trial of Jesus, okay, took place here in this fortress. And so the Via Dolorosa, the traditional Via Dolorosa, the Way of the Agony, would be from here, okay, and then all the way across and through the city and over to this hill, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Does this make sense? Yes. Okay, so this is theory number one. Theory number two is very recent. When I say recent, it's a little over 100 years old, and you're going to hear more about that soon when we go to the Garden Tomb. So I'm not going to spend too much time explaining that. I will only say this. General Gordon argued that the real tomb, okay, the real skull hill, was not that one, the one that I showed you earlier, but rather a hill to the north of where the city was at the time of Jesus. So now again, you see that hill? Okay, do you see the laser dot? Follow the dot. Follow the dot. Follow the dot. You see the dot? Yeah. See this path here? Behind the path, you see a wall that looks like a wall of pebbles? This is where the Garden Tomb is at, okay? It's to the north of the Temple Mount, not to the west, like this one, but to the north. And essentially what Gordon argued was, the Praetorium was here, but instead of taking Jesus to this hill over here, they took him across the city to the north side, and then through the Damascus Gate, and over to this location. Yes?
On the north wall, there is not a gate.
Well, there is one over there.
Oh, I just can't.
You can't see it from here.
Okay.
Okay, so these are the two options. Okay, later on in the day, we're going to walk along the Via Dolorosa, but backwards. Okay, we're going to start off there around the Garden Tomb area. It's called the Damascus Gate. It's this gate over here on the north. Then we're going to walk through this area and all the way over to where the Antonia Fortress stood. So we're going to do the alternative Via Dolorosa, okay, in the north end, and then we'll get to see some of the original stations of the traditional path, namely the first and second and third, which are around this area. And again, we're kind of doing it backwards because, of course, this is where the trial of Jesus took place. This is where his crucifixion and burial, but we're going to do it later on the other way around because it's mostly downhill, okay? So, all right, yes. Are there any questions?
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
Yeah. what was the name of the street over here by site number 1?
It's just a suggested location of the gate.